Hi everyone, Richard from Hawker Brownlow Education with you once again. Today we're here to talk about a recent release book, this one in fact, Life in the Garden, Activities and Projects for the Outdoor Classroom by Dr. Ross Mars. Now, in it, it's a practical handbook and Ross guides teachers through the basics of garden design and maintenance while providing opportunities for students to explore and contribute to a thriving ecosystem. It's a really great way to bring the outdoor world into the classroom. And we're lucky enough to have Dr. Ross Mars here to talk about today. Dr. Ross Mars, welcome. Thank you for your time.
I'm glad to be here. It's a bit unusual times to be in, of course, and normally you wouldn't have this kind of thing happening going out to schools, but at least we can probably get the message out.
Absolutely. Your background is permaculture, and it's a term that I think many of us have heard of, but not necessarily fully understand. What sets it apart from the other cultures out there, if you like?
Well, historically, permaculture arose from permanent agriculture, and so it was a system that utilised perennial food crops and endeavoured to grow, the food, the fibre, the medicines, the timber, the products that we all use each day. But it soon became moved into permanent culture. So that embraces all aspects of human settlement. So it includes the houses we build, the food we grow, the materials we recycle, the water we capture, the energy we produce, and of course the community relationships that we maintain. So it's a little bit different from the other cultures in that sense. It's all aspects of human settlement.
Yeah. And do you think those concepts are being taught in schools or taught at all properly?
Well, I think the ideas behind permaculture were based on science. So permaculture is often called a cultivated ecology, and because we're focusing on food and materials, and it certainly was a way that people could actually see where their food was, how it was grown and where it came from. I think a lot of kids don't know where things come from. But it's also because we are growing, food and materials and then utilising them, that's where the design and technology comes in. So, and then once you're looking at that, all other learning areas fall into place because there's language, we're doing calculations, the geography of regions, and of course creativity, because permaculture is all about designing, being smart about designing how we live, how we build our gardens, how things are placed, how we build our houses. So the idea of being a bit creative and a bit artistic comes into play as well.
And hence the book, which ties in well to the Australian curriculum. It's aligned with the Australian curriculum.
Yeah, well, the whole idea was that I've done a few books for adults and for high school kids, but I wanted to focus on primary school. And so educators are going to get, I would think, another quality resource to supplement what they might have as well. And that's going to give them some ideas for some lessons, for kids. And of course, the students are going to be looking at being engaged in meaningful ways, I would think, and trying to find a bit more about and explore about their surroundings. Because a lot of the activities are going outside and obviously develop this outside classroom and focus on that idea so that they can find out about how nature works and how food is grown and how we can prepare the food and eat it. And we talk about nutrition, and so it goes on. So it's really a holistic approach to education.
And so what do you hope that students and educators get out of your book? Is there any one message you hope they get out, or something a bit more broader and holistic?
Well, I think it is holistic. I mean, ideally, if you're tying any learning activities into the Australian curriculum, which it is, and you make those links, then teachers can see how they can use those lessons to meet the student, and the student can meet the outcomes for students, which is what the whole idea of education is at the moment. So, kids themselves probably, I would find that some kids would probably love to be outside.
Yeah.
Outside learning in a garden, watching butterflies or picking up snails or, looking at worms in the worm farm or, picking vegetables and going and cooking them, that's would bring a lot of joy to many kids. And kids, everybody learns differently, and having kids that want to be outside is not a bad thing.
Absolutely. And there has been some encouraging signs in there. A lot of schools have taken that kitchen garden approach, and they built some wonderful outdoor areas in their schools, which have been, I think, really great to see.
Yeah.
Is there, during this lockdown, as we are in at the moment, is there any activity in particular from the book that you think kids or parents at home could start out with?
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot of activities that can be drawn on. And I think that it's no one particular one stands out, because you could, for example, quite easily use some of the resources that parents have at home, like cool drink bottles and glass jars, because then you can make things like mini hot houses and terrariums. Fruit fly traps, that kind of stuff. A bit of cardboard and a bit of glue makes you a butterfly feeder. And so there's tons and tons of activities that you could probably engage in. A bit of celery and a bit of food colouring. They can see how water transfers through plants. So there's also recipes to grow, to use the products that you make. There's how to make jam and how to make relish, and you can use some of the herbs to make a pot puree or a herb sachet for mum. There's tons of things, and collecting seed and growing seed and watching it grow and measuring it. So a lot of the activities don't need to have fancy equipment, and stuff that can be found at home. And, so parents could probably help their children quite easily obtain the materials and get them up and running and get them going. And I mentioned earlier about the fact that so many schools were doing the kitchen garden program and stuff. And I did some research some time ago, and I remember when I was writing this book, and I remember there's something like 7,500 primary schools in Australia. And about 13% of them, so well over 1,000, belong to the Stephanie Alexander Kitchen Garden Program, which is, so they've got, established gardens. They're kind of growing the food. They're kind of using the food in the classroom. They're growing stuff. And I know there's so many other schools that have school garden beds that are underutilised or not used effectively. So having these kind of books like this, where you can engage kids and outside growing the food, looking at pest control, looking at soil, all those important things. And then obviously tying in with using that space, that outside classroom space, much better, and engaging kids in meaningful ways.
Compared to when you started in teaching, do you think the ideas that you obviously hold very dear to your heart, do you think we're in a better place now in the way they're being taught in schools?
I think there's a much more awareness of trying to live sustainably. Certainly the younger generation pretty switched on, about being a bit more careful about how we treat the planet. They are concerned, as you know, about climate change. And I think realistically, if you're looking at the future of jobs in Australia or even in the world, the jobs are going to come in the fields of energy, water, food, health and well-being, community. And permaculture is all about energy and water and food, health and well-being and community. So, it's much more awareness. You see it on TV, on Gardening Australia, other shows. People are aware of the word permaculture, maybe not clear about all things about what it's about. But once you start looking into it, you'll see that this is trying to provide a framework, if you like, of how we can build resilience in a community and how we can be a bit more responsible for our own well-being.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Ross Mars, thank you very much. Your book, Life in a Garden, is available at hbe.com.au now. It is a really great looking book and the content is wonderful. So thank you so much for your time, Ross, and enjoy your lockdown.
Thanks very much. And I hope everybody gets through it and we all see each other on the other side.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Bye-bye.